Today, I'm going to show you how to make your content creation effortless so you can actually stick with it for once while still growing your business. This is the Better Human Business Podcast. I'm Jerred Moon, and I've seen it over and over again from entrepreneurs. They know they should be producing content. They want to, they start and they fail. They just can't maintain that consistency. And I've been a business operator primarily for the last 10 years, meaning not a content producer as my primary job, but operating and growing a business as my primary job while being incredibly consistent with producing content. At the time of recording this, I have done 419 Better Human Business Podcast episodes. This feed that you're listening to right now, 419, it was formerly the Better Humanology Podcast. I also have the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast, where we've published over 888 podcast episodes. This is over the last 10 years. I've been doing this stuff for a very long time. So that's over 1,300 podcast episodes. I don't know if we've ever missed a week, ever, other than intentionally this past Christmas taking off like the week of Christmas and letting listeners know we were going to do that. So I have maintained a lot of consistency for a long time, and my primary job is not content creation. It has always been to be the business operator. And the biggest thing I have learned in consistently publishing content over the last 10 years is you have to make it easy. And I got a nice little acronym worked out for you here. So let's go over it. Easy, E.A.S.Y. E, you need an effortless setup. If you're watching the video version of this, I'm going to actually take you to the back end of my office so you can see my light setup, my camera setup, my audio setup, everything in between. So you can watch and see exactly how I have everything set up. All right, so here's a quick breakdown of what is a semi-permanent setup for content. So I don't really have to think about it. I don't have to set things up. These things just live in my office for content. You see, I have a big light there, hair light there. I just have those things constantly set up in my office. I always kind of say my office is like a studio that I work in, but really it's more of an office because a lot of this stuff isn't that crazy. I got two lights permanently set up. All I have to do, click those on. And then when it gets down to actually creating the content, I'm using my MacBook Pro right here, has the content ready for me to go after I've prepared it. Then I have the video set up right here. This is the ZV-E1 camera. It has a dummy battery. So dummy battery means it's like plugged into a wall. I never have to worry about charging it. All I have to do, make sure an SD card is in there, hit record, and now I'm recording video. That camera doesn't move. It basically stays there, same position all the time. And then I have my microphone right here, which is plugged in XLR to this Zoom H6 handy recorder. Just records really good audio. Another one, just record. That's how easy it is. That's how simple it is. I hit record here, I hit record there, stick the microphone in front of my face, turn on some lights, and I'm good to go. Now I can create content, quickly and then get back to work because I'm not a full-time content creator. I'm an operator who also creates some content. And if this was any harder than it is, if I had to push one extra button, I would not create content. If I had to set up these lights every single time, if I had to whip out the microphone or get a tripod or charge the camera batteries, none of this would work. It just wouldn't work because it'd be too many steps. I have too many other things to do in a day. But this setup right here, this semi-permanent setup, is super easy. The only thing that you lose is the content's the same place every single time. It's not very interesting. I'm not like walking around all these different places or showing you my gym down there or anything like that. We're just shooting the same place every single time, but it's so simple and it's this semi-permanent setup. It makes it easy for me to create a lot of content and to just get it done with very little hurdles, very little friction, and I can focus on doing the work I need to do, but also creating some content in the process. Now, for everyone listening, basically what I have set up, lights in my office, they're permanent. They don't come down. The lights are always up in here for the video stuff that I do. I have a H6 Zoom handy recorder that this microphone that I'm speaking into plugs into. It's permanently attached to my desk. All I have to do, hit record. Same with my camera. It's not on a tripod. I don't have to get it out. It is sitting on basically it's called a small rig. It's basically attached to my desk. The camera is permanently attached to my desk and ready to go, framed up how I want it. And it also has a dummy battery. The dummy battery is a battery that plugs directly into the wall, so I never have to charge this camera. And the whole goal in here is like everything is just easy. If I had to set up lights or set up a tripod or charge batteries, I'm not creating content. As funny as that sounds, like it's going to be too much work. I have too many other things to do today. I can't just set up, for 2 hours and tear down for 2 hours, like all this stuff. I just need to have everything ready to go at all times. So you need to think about that in your setup. What kind of effortless setup could you have? Like I've recommended a lot of people, like you don't need the lights, the camera, everything, whatever you're going to commit to, you can get there eventually. But ultimately, do you have like an old iPhone? Like, sometimes we trade in our iPhones and we don't have or we don't trade it in. We just get the new one. We keep the old one. Or maybe the next time you do this, keep the old one and just have it permanently set up on an iPhone tripod, something like that you can just have set up. You hit record, you're good to go. You got your content created. It's just there permanently. Make it easy, make it effortless. So that's the E. The A is automated production. So when I first started producing content, I very quickly, when I was doing the podcast, realized how time consuming it was. And I actually really enjoy some video editing and audio editing. I'm not necessarily good at it, but I do enjoy the process of trying to finalize these files and make them sound awesome, all these kind of things. It's fun to do, but ultimately not worth our time as business owners. So you have to automate that production. And so what does that automation look like? Well, I've done this 2 different ways over the last several years. It wasn't until the last year I've actually hired full-time team members to help with audio production, video production, all these kind of things. But that's because I'm purposefully trying to scale up and make things better than they have been over the last decade. But I used to just record this microphone straight USB into my computer, and we used Descript for a long time. So you can go check out Descript. But ultimately, I recorded it there. It goes to the cloud, and then I would have somebody else edit the podcast, do all that, publish it. I don't have to worry about it. Because when I was doing all of that, when I first started producing content, I realized it was taking hours. Like I had to prep the content, shoot the content, edit the content. And I know some of you are probably doing that now. You have to automate that. You have to hand it off. So when I'm finished recording this, I have added a step because now I have SD cards. I'll dump these SD cards on my computer. After I dump them on my computer, they go to Google Drive, and now I'm done. So I do have that one step of I have to upload the files, but now everyone else knows the process of, okay, we got new work. So video editor starts working on that. Podcast guy starts, producing the audio, getting that published to the feed, all those kind of things. So I'll map out the process. I may even do it the first couple times to make sure I understand the process and then farm it out immediately. Like I said, I have full-time people who do this now, but you don't have to start there. You can start with Upwork, Fiverr, all these places where you could hire someone for relatively cheap because they're doing a lot of different podcasts and, a couple $100 a month, and you have somebody who can just publish and get your content up there without you having to worry about it as much. So that's the A, automated production. The S is single channel focus. Now, this is where I see a lot of friction get added to the content production process. If you're like, all right, I want an email newsletter. I want to consistently do Instagram. I want to consistently do YouTube. I want to have an audio podcast. I want to, be on TikTok, all these things. Now, some of these things can be reused, and that's great. And I do think that if you can expand to all these different places, go for it. But I built my entire business on blogs at first because I didn't want to get my face in front of a camera. I didn't want to talk. And then after blogs, I moved to audio-only podcasts. Now, these audio-only podcasts still went to YouTube. Like Garage Gym Athlete has over 10,000 subscribers, and we've never really put a lot of effort into building that YouTube channel. It's really just the audio version went. So like an image, but the audio is there. So anyway, single channel focus. I went from blogs, and then I went to just having audio-only podcasts, and I did that for years and years and years. It wasn't until this past year that we're getting more serious about video, increasing audio quality, bringing in lights, all this kind of stuff. It's only recently we've done that. Now, I think that you should focus on one single channel and get good at that and have it mastered, have the effortless setup and have the automated production. And then once you feel comfortable, you're like, all I have to do is jump on here, record the podcast, then I'm done. I hand it off to my team, my contractors or whatever. And you do that for a single channel. And then after you feel like that channel is kind of mastered, then you can move on. I even did this recently when I started producing more Instagram content. So we were doing Instagram Reels. I would batch this content. I would shoot it all. And then it would go to the team. We did that for 6 months before we ever started doing a video version of the podcast because I wanted to make sure that process was good and it wasn't going to be too time consuming because ultimately I need to focus on growing the business. I need to be the business operator, right? So having that single channel focus is really important. So master one, whether it takes you a week, a month, 6 months, and then move to the next and make sure that you have the team in place to continue to scale on these different channels. Now, the last one, Why is yield consistently. So what I challenge most entrepreneurs to do is to have a no-fail publishing calendar and set it for whatever you think is reasonable for you. So no-fail publishing calendar. Can you do one podcast per week, one video per week, one video per month? It doesn't matter how you start, especially if content is not a major part of your business right now. Just be consistent. Just be consistent and have that no-fail publishing calendar. Then you're going to commit to it to a certain amount of time. So if you're like, I will publish one podcast episode per week, and I will do that for a year. I recommend minimum 1 year. I know when I first started my business, I was blogging, and I said I was going to blog for 3 years, and then I would see how it goes. It's because I had another job at the time. I was making income. There was no rush for me to switch. I didn't even know if it's possible back then to have an online business that was gonna work. But think about the time commitment there. 3 years of writing blogs before I decided to do anything else. Now it started to work. Obviously, I started to generate income. The business started to grow. But you have to commit to this content creation process for a lot longer than you think. It's not, I'm going to consistently do Instagram content for 6 weeks, or I'm going to consistently do a podcast for 6 months. Podcasts are very hard to grow. They take a very long time to grow. And same with you, like every channel, to be honest, takes a long time to grow these days. So you need to have your no-fail publishing calendar, whatever it is, weekly, monthly. I do recommend weekly for most people, and then have it be consistent over a long period of time, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And that's not going to be a big deal if you have the effortless setup, the automated production, you're only focused on one channel, you're going to be able to yield consistently. But ultimately, you need to be producing content for your business. This is only becoming more and more important as time goes on, as AI takes over more and more industries, your personal brand, or at least your personality in your brand. And I think that those are two different things, right? It's like, well, I have my brand. Do I need a personal brand as well? It's like, well, you can build a personal brand so you can pivot, launch new things, whatever, but you can also inject your personality into your current brand. And that is also another way for people to know, like, and trust you, and to grow your channel, and to, ultimately get more leads, get more customers. So if you are failing to do this, you're not producing content, it's probably not because you don't want to. It's just probably because you have too many friction points that are stopping you. So eliminate all of those friction points, yield consistently, run your business, and hey, try harder.